The year is 2355, an era where megacorporations have ruled the stars. From buying numerous planets for terraforming to promoting their products, they have solidified themselves as the sole owners of the galaxy. This is the Outer Worlds. When looking at sci-fi, some envisioned that the people of Earth would band together and colonize the stars in the name of humanity. But in the case of the Outer Worlds, humanity's course was far different than what many envisioned. It all began at the turn of the century, when in 1900, William McKinley was re-elected to be the next president of the United States of America. During his first tenure as president, he brought economic change to the population, especially in his views on business trusts. He proposed a laissez-faire attitude towards those trusts as he believed that consolidation is the key to maintain their economy. It is also the era where railroad companies were at the forefront in creating large corporate monopolies. He would also push the century to intervene in foreign affairs, such as the Spanish-American War, the Boxer Rebellion, and the Philippine-American War. He's also instrumental in writing the draft to the Panama Canal when tragedy struck. 1 year after his presidential victory, McKinley would later on visit the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York, to speak to the public. He would later on give his speech where he would shake hands with many visitors of the expo. Unfortunately, he would later shake hands with his assassin, Leon Czolgosz, who fired 2 shots at his abdomen. Czolgosz was apprehended and the president is rushed to the hospital as doctors try to find the second bullet. And although they couldn't find it, they noticed that McKinley became better as headlines were delivered that the president is okay. But then, gangrene grew within the walls of his stomach, poisoning his blood, which led to his death in September the 14th of 1901. 1 month later, Czolgosz is executed via electric chair. And although McKinley's death occurred in our original timeline, it diverged in the Outer Worlds. In this alternate timeline, McKinley wasn't assassinated, and it created a trend where megacorporations would dominate society. Originally, McKinley's vice president and later president, Theodore Roosevelt, would bring about numerous reforms regarding major business trusts as he broke up over 44 major corporations, including major railway company, Northern Securities Company. He would even create the Bureau of Corporations that has the power to investigate major businesses. But in this timeline, Roosevelt was unable to pursue that goal as McKinley's death was averted. With it, McKinley's goal of pushing for conglomeration would bear fruit in the future, as it would create a directorate that would lead Earth under major corporations 2 centuries later. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We have more incoming videos about other role-playing games that would surely make you interested. Stay tuned. After the end of this second term, McKinley's future actions affected the entire world as society was led under powerful business trusts. This brought the Gilded Age, which caused a catastrophic war known as the Great War. But out of the ashes of the war is the creation of a global entity known as the Earth Directorate. The Earth Directorate is a global government whose main duty is to regulate trade between corporations while dealing with disputes between other corporations. They would later on create technology known as the skip drive that allows intergalactic vessels to skip through the stars into the planet of their choice. It is through that technology that they were able to search for new planets and auction them to the highest bidder during the 23rd century in order to be colonized. And although all of the planets were owned by their respective companies, the Directorate employs its own people as their representatives. Known as agents, their main responsibilities are the safety of people under their corporate leaders and the arbitration of factions who were accused of oppressing the colonists. They are recruited through propaganda serials like Commander Zane and Buddy. although it's unknown if it even helped recruitment or morale in the first place. They are also far different than most of the megacorporations, as they adhere to the principles of democracy, at least according to them. Unfortunately, they suffer from numerous bureaucratic problems as their attempt to spread their influence across the galaxy backfired. It's worth noting that the farther a colony was from Earth, the less the Directorate's influence was present. It also grew worse for their agents, as the distance between Earth and the planets that they are going to would take at least a decade for them to arrive in. As of today, the Directorate's influence is waning, as many corporate factions outside of their premises remain alive without their support. It's also worth noting that Earth was experiencing space-time rifts that caused problems for their agent detachments, forcing them to fend for themselves. With it, the Earth Directorate is currently a shell of its former self, as its influence wanes in colonies that were very far from it. Much like the Halcyon system that was owned by the Halcyon Holdings Corporation. Founded during the 23rd century, the Halcyon Holdings Corporation, or HHC for short, was created when 10 companies pooled their resources in order to purchase the Halcyon system from the Directorate. The Halcyon system is located within the Halcyon cluster, where it was known on Earth for being the brightest star in the system. It's also promoted as the only system owned and operated by corporations under Halcyon Holdings. Soon after, the corporation would bring about colonists to the system and divide each planet into their respective corporations. They enlisted 2 ships, the Groundbreaker and the Hope, to carry their colonists to the Halcyon system as they remained in stasis via cryosleep. The Groundbreaker arrived on time as the colonists began colonization. They first colonized Terra 1, a moon located near the gas giant Olympus, and the planet named Terra 2. Unfortunately, the terraformation of Terra 1 failed, resulting in the mutation of the planet's flora and fauna. This left HHC no choice but to abandon Terra 1 and redouble their efforts towards Terra 2, which was met with success. They would rename Terra 1 into Monarch and remove the planet from its promotions. But while the Groundbreaker arrived in time, the same couldn't be said for the Hope. The Hope arrived very late, as it was rediscovered 25 years later on 2320. The reason it was late is that its skip drive was destroyed, and most of the crew were dead due to a mutiny. Upon its discovery, Halcyon Holdings realized that the colonists had spent too long in stasis, so reviving them would be risky. Instead, they tried to hide it from the public to preserve their power. Today, Halcyon Holdings' main headquarters is located on the planet Terra 2, in the capital city of Byzantium. They are ruled by the Halcyon Holdings Corporation Board, commonly known as the Board. The board is led by a chairman, hailing from one of the 10 companies under them. The current chairman of the board is Charles Rockwell, CEO of Universal Defense Logistics. The board also includes a representative from the Earth Directorate, whose role is to oversee their operations and report the events to Earth. Unfortunately, current representative Aloysius Clark is under house arrest by the board's orders. And it also grew worse when the colony experienced terrible times due to the incompetence of the board. They are also notorious in using the hazard clause, which is said to cordon off any location or planet that is deemed unsuitable for a working environment. Once issued, all personnel within that area are to leave within 6 months, as the affected area is considered off-limits. Corporations who were caught operating the area will either be fined or, in worst cases, disbarment. Even so, Halcyon Holdings is still in control, as the colony is racked with many advertisements from the corporation's members, such as the company that dedicates itself to bringing the cheapest equipment for everyone. Known for its cheap items, Spacer's Choice is one of the most recognizable companies within the Halcyon system. They specialize in creating cheap weapons and armor in a wide variety, catering to a big clientele. Some of their notable weapons and armor include assault rifles, light pistols, and standard troop armor. And although they are easily breakable, customers can either buy brand new ones or repair them at workshops. Spacer's Choice is also known for its cheap food products like bread noodles, mock apples, Spacer's Chaw, and Spacer's Corona. But one of the most common and popular items the company has is gourmet salt tuna fillets. This canned good contains fillets made out of grounded salt tuna, along with numerous herbs, oils, and spices, leading to it having a high sodium content. Unfortunately, making these fillets was an unfortunate choice due to corporate greed. The salt tuna originated from Monarch as a product of cultivation. When Spacer's Choice discovered it, they attempted to introduce it to Terra too, but failed due to the planet's harsh environment. Salt tuna is an important resource, as many towns under Spacer's Choice relied on it for income, like the Emerald Vale town of Edgewater. Whenever salt tuna is implemented in those towns, the company creates canneries and industrial factories to manufacture them. Unfortunately, these factories were dangerous, causing untold damage to the environment and affecting their workers' health. Aside from their products, their employees are also known for their diligence in delivering the Spacer's Choice sale lines, regardless of their current conditions. The reason for it is that the company forbids them from accepting help outside of work. There's even a rule that forbids employees from speaking to anyone deemed incompetent, people who were unavailable for work. It's also worth noting that Spacer's Choice also instills their employees with passive aggressiveness, especially against their rival company, Auntie Cleo's. Moreover, Spacer's Choice remains one of the most notable companies within Halcyon, even though the majority of the colony hated their products. And when times call for a cheap but favorable weapon or armor, always remember, it's not the best choice, it's Spacer's Choice. While Spacer's Choice relies on cheap items, the next company prefers to sell their specialty of delectable meats from a modified pig. C&P is a member of Halcyon Holdings, known as a company that manufactures food. They specialize in meat products, especially their signature item, Borstwurst. The company would create other variants of their Borstwurst, like Boston baked beans, Borst pockets, and I can't believe it's not Borst. And to create these products, they relied on the use of genetically altered pigs known as cystipigs. Cystipigs are pigs that were bred for mass production, as their tumors were harvested for the company's food products. Other than their tumors, they'd also harvest their hooves as feed supplements once the cyst pig is slaughtered. Even so, C&P still remains present due to their products being sold within the Halcyon system. The only proof of their presence is within Monarch, at the abandoned C&P Borst factory. The factory was once part of the company where they manufactured Borstwurst until Halcyon Holdings issued a hazard clause, forcing C&P to leave the factory. But unbeknownst to them, someone else would take over. Proclaiming himself the king of Borst in Monarch, Clive Lumberg reopened the factory along with his workers, including former C&P employees at the factory. With him at the helm, he ensured his workers were well paid, but was forced to survive a brutal work schedule as their shifts lasts for 23 hours. And when work is over, they have to document their entire shift in 15-minute increments. But the factory harbored a dark secret, as the cyst pigs were fed with human flesh, where victims were from Monarch, including his own employees who were fired or disobeyed his orders. And although Clive has made his own special Borst his way, nothing beats the original Borstwurst, as they are still sold by respectable traders across the Halcyon system, which is why, at C&P, we know our C's and P's. But as C&P sold their meat, the next company has products good for a sweet tooth. Under their parent company, East West Co., Rizzo's is a food manufacturer that caters to its audience through a wide variety. Their products include cereals, confectionery, and alcoholic drinks like Dark Matter Bar, Knock You Out Bar, Mock Apple Cider, and partially emulsified semi-frozen milk-like dessert, or ice cream for short. But their signature products are made from their signature ingredient, purple berries. According to a log in Eridanos, purple berries were said to be developed by Rizzo's as a healthy fruit that contains less sugar and more fiber. While it's unknown what the process was used for in creating such fruit, it allowed the company to create numerous flagship products through it, like Purple Berry Crunch, Purple Berry Munch, Purple Berry Fizzy Tea, and Purple Berry Wine. They'd also used the opportunity to promote their products, such as the time they collaborated with Odeon Pictures in creating the Halcyon Helen cereal, where the titular character, Halcyon Helen, would promote their products, be it in their own cereal or in real life. Much like other companies, Rizzo's also took control of other planets in towns like Eridanos. But there are times that they are forced to leave certain areas, should Halcyon Holdings give them a hazard clause, such as the case of Cascadia. Cascadia was once a prosperous company town under Rizzo's, but was forced to evacuate through the hazard clause. The company managers at the time decided to save themselves rather than the townspeople, as they sent only one shuttle, enough for the employees and their equipment. And on the day of the flight, Raptidons ambushed them, causing the shuttle to leave early. As the shuttle left, the remaining townsfolk survived for 3 months until a group of marauders attacked the town and claimed it as their stronghold. Today, Rizzo's maintains itself as a powerful company aimed at bringing the taste of purple berry to their customers. And if people ask you what your favorite drink is, it's Rizzo's. As for the next company, their products soothe customers with medication. As the subsidiary of Colway Pharmaceuticals, Auntie Cleo's is a pharmaceutical company known for their medical supplies. The company name originated from the Schuyler family, according to former Spacer's Choice employee Clarence Mosley. It's also noting that Auntie Cleo's has a rivalry against Spacer's Choice, as they taught their employees to badmouth their products when they have the chance. With their headquarters located at Terra 2, they promoted pharmaceutical products like antibiotics cream, ketchup, immunazole, and Verity's breath inhalant. They even have a short-lived comic book series entitled The Exhilarating Adventures of Archibald Excelsior, Ace Exterminator, that would become a cult classic by its fans. But behind Auntie Cleo's smile is a dark secret known by many of its competitors. In order to earn more profit, Auntie Cleo's is more than willing to sell untested and dangerous products at the risk of accidental deaths. Even before that, they're also capable of testing their products in unethical experiments. These experiments include rubbing corrosive acid on test subjects, feeding live human arms to raptidons for pain resilience, and drowning them for breathlessness. They're also known for shutting down certain experiments should they deem unworthy of their time and money. Within Olympus's atmosphere is the Olympus Orbital Pharmaceutical Station. The station was once part of Cleo's under the leadership of their head chemist, Dr. Jasper Lowe. During his time as the head scientist, he and his team were working on anthrocillin, or anthrocillin. They would also develop anthrocillin plus, which is anthrocillin but mint-flavored. Unfortunately, Lowe was not too keen with anthrocillin plus's development, so he redirected his team to work on its own creation, Dr. Lowe's Sky High Mix. The Sky High Mix is proclaimed by Lowe as the magnum opus of psychostimulants, that a single dose can maximize a person's genius and productivity. It clears their mind for a moment, and as a bonus, gives them a fresh, minty breath. But during its experimental phase, animals would explode when injected with it. and should a user begin to experience drug withdrawals from using it, they would experience logorrhea as a side effect. Due to this, it caused many delays to their original goal of making Ampicillin Plus that Auntie Cleo's initiated via Pink Slip Protocol, killing everyone on board. Only Lo and its receptionist Kelly were the lone survivors. While some would criticize their experiment and behaviors, Auntie Cleo's remains the forefront of medical items in Halcyon. After all, it's better than nature. But while Auntie Cleo's has done its part in medicine, the next company delves into mining rich ores from different places within the Halcyon system. As one of the founding members of Halcyon Holdings, Hephaestus Mining Company, or Hephaestos for short, is a mining company named after the planet that they currently own, Hephaestus. Named after the Roman god of fire, Hephaestus is the innermost planet near Halcyon's sun. They are able to claim the planet first as they build the planet's first outposts. They mined the planets for its rare minerals and sold them to the buyers throughout the colony. And yet, Hephaestus isn't the only planet they have their eyes on, as they also targeted other celestial bodies for their minerals like Skylar, located in the Charybdis cluster. Skylar is one of Halcyon system's largest asteroids. The asteroid was claimed by the mining company 3 years before the Hope was deemed missing, as they discovered a mineral vein containing high amounts of yttrium and scandium. It would lead the company to build a dome within the initial vein, along with a transformer for oxygen and a mining outpost for their workers. Things were going well until 4 months later, when the first mineral vein was fully extracted, prompting the miners to search for other veins across the asteroid. It would also be the time that the board would send their team to find the Hope by tracking its signals, but to no avail. Then, a few months later, the mineral veins within the dome were fully depleted, prompting the rest of the workers to request a relocation to another part of the asteroid, where they discovered other veins with great potential. Soon after, a circus company named Circus Time would visit Skylar to entertain the miners in boosting their morale. Unfortunately, a pack of ferals that were supposed to be part of the show escaped. 3 teams were sent to bring them back but were killed by the primals, including the ringmaster. Due to the incident, Circus Time left Skylar and left their freighter behind, and 1 year later, upper management from Hephaestus rejected their request and forced the workers to leave Skylar for another asteroid as the company redoubled its efforts within Hephaestus. As of today, Skylar had been inhabited by numerous outlaw bands who used the dome as their main base, including the Circus Time freighter. The asteroid is also home to the primals left by the circus and rogue hostile automechanicals. Even though Skylar has been abandoned by the outlaws, Hephaestus Mining remains operational as they continue their pursuit to acquire raw minerals for their clients. But while they are still part of the board, one of the founding companies had a fallout between them and the board, causing their removal. With Stellar Bay as their headquarters, Monarch Stellar Industries, or MSI, were once part of the board due to their result of a loophole. When the board realized that Terra 1 was a lost cause, they decided to enact a hazard clause that forced all of their companies to evacuate the planet. But as their colleagues leave the planet, one of them would use a loophole to acquire the planet all to themselves. His name is Sanjar Nandi. As MSI's current CEO, Sanjar Nandi joined the company at an early age. He would meet another young office worker named Graham Bryant, who would be his best friend. While he was an ambitious fellow, his attention to detail was terrible, leading him to be on the receiving end of negative performance reviews. Even so, that didn't stop him from working his way to the top, as he was loyal to MSI. He would even donate one of his kidneys to an executive to increase his chances of becoming the next CEO when he would take the opportunity to seize his moment. During the Terra 1 evacuation, Hiram Blythe, aka The Broker, revealed to Sanjar and Graham a legal loophole to acquire Terra 1 for MSI. The loophole states that should MSI remain as the only company on the planet, they would automatically own Terra 1. With this, the duo believed it to be their best opportunity to reform MSI, specifically their treatment to their workers. But when they presented it to the executives, they were shocked by their inaction to pursue the loophole, causing Graham to orchestrate a massacre to kill most of the executives behind Sanjar's back. Afterwards, Sanjar became the new head of MSI, where he would struggle to maintain the company as the board chose to embargo the planet as retaliation for the loophole. Today, MSI is the only company that remains in Monarch, as Sanjar tried his best to make his dream of changing the company into a reality. He would instill the company an egalitarian approach, where he dedicated the protection of the workers and employees first and foremost. Unfortunately, he would have to cut corners on that ideal, as Monarch is a harsh place, forcing Sanjar to prioritize survival. Even so, MSI remains steadfast in bringing stability to Monarch while pursuing the game of returning to the board. But while MSI struggled to return to the board, another company rose up as its CEO is determined to bring fame to her family. Operating inside the groundbreaker, Sublight Salvage and Shipping Corporation, commonly known as Sublight, is an independent company whose network of salvagers took on jobs that ranged from transportation to waste disposal. They operate jobs that border the line between legal and illegal activities. They'd also be at odds with the board during their actions ranging from smuggling contraband to taking over abandoned outposts. Even so, no one dared to speak about their actions because the hierarchy is filled with contractors and secretive vice presidents. They also offer a wide selection of products like their plasma rifles and protective clothing. Sublight's main office is located in the Groundbreaker, where they'd also have a settlement under their control in Monarch known as Fallbrook. They also have a small establishment known as the Sprat Shack, which is located in Gorgon's Gorgon Canyon. Smugglers and salvagers visit the shack as a means of rest and recreation. Finally, the company also has a subsidiary company known as Sublight Underground, or SLUG, which is located at Eridanos, where they currently run the Eridanos Atmospheric Complex. As of today, its current CEO is Lilia Hagen, a descendant of the Groundbreaker's original colonists. At a young age, she joined Sublight and worked her way up to becoming their new CEO. Unfortunately, her occupation led her to lose sleep, turning her into an impatient, emotionless person. She would begin to be more reckless as she took on dangerous jobs with the hope of becoming rich. But to avoid getting her hands dirty, she would employ mercenaries to do her dirty work instead. Now, Sublight aims to bring its services to any job, so long as contractors don't care what they're facing. And should you need someone to do your job, Sublight is here to take care of it. And as the companies of the Halcyon system work to bring maximum profits in their alternate future, many discoveries were made, especially a device that allows people to travel through the stars, sparking a new race for companies to grow rich. In the early 23rd century, a young woman named Alexandra Varick would discover an ancient ship that was buried in an unknown location on Earth. She would reverse engineer the technology on board the ship, creating a device that allowed faster than light travel within the stars, naming it the Skip Drive. Varick declared herself as its inventor, concealing the truth that she merely reverse engineered alien technology. She would then found the colony of Arcadia and its government, the Protectorate of Arcadia. She then created a monopoly in skip drive manufacturing, allowing Arcadia to remain independent from Earth. This would kickstart a space race as companies quickly explore the universe and pay enormous sums of money to gain control of newly found star systems such as Halcyon Holdings, who formed in order to buy the Halcyon system. And while corporations strive to earn a piece of the universe for themselves, the Earth Directorate see it differently. With the monopolization of the skip drive created, the Earth Directorate assigned Augustine de Vries to infiltrate Arcadia to find a way to break the monopoly. Then, de Vries would contact the Directorate of an unsealed skip drive inside the Horizon Point Station, a space station near the moon of Eden. Through it, the Directorate sent a group of agents alongside its commander to retrieve the skip drive and accomplish de Vries' operation. Unfortunately, it was a ruse, as she destroyed the station because the Protectorate were conducting illegal experiments. The space station's destruction killed almost all of the team, except for the commander, who was jettisoned into space inside a cryostasis pod. Today, the entire galaxy is grateful that the skip drive was invented, as it led humanity to explore what remains in the galaxy. And in Arcadia, all of the Arcadians praised Varric for creating such technology, treating her as a messianic figure after death. But while this skip drive remains one of the greatest inventions that mankind has created, another invention would bring many colonists together, where it became the galaxy's newest pastime. As the main sport of certain colonies, tossball is a sport that was made in the near future. While it is unknown when the sport was created, it was undeniable that it garnered many fans who would watch their games. Although the way the game is played is not known, there were rules on how the sport was played, as explained by the following. The player has various zones named after the days of the week. There are at least 3 ways to score a goal. The known ways are body goals, foot goals, and hand goals. The visitor team can score goals by running the ball into the Saturday goal, and the home team can score goals by running it into the Sunday goal. Running the ball into the goal is worth more points, but it has more risks, such as getting cleaved, hacked, winged, or bronzed. You are allowed or even encouraged to kill members of the opposing team during a match. You can be ejected for overly sportsmanlike conduct. There are even positions mentioned about tossball, such as first back to 32nd back, forward, goalie, hacker, tender, winger, and mascot. With it, tossball continued to grow as most of Halcyon's companies took the opportunity to create their own teams like Rizzo's Rangers, Auntie Cleo's Darlings, CNP Players, and Spacers Chosen. And with growth comes merchandise for companies to exploit like tossballs, jerseys, tossball sticks, tossball blockers, and posters. They would also manage their own arenas like Antibiotic Sports Arena and the Eugene W. Smithers Sportatorium. It is also a way for normal people to rise to stardom, as many players were highly regarded by their fan base. One good example of it is Bertie Holcomb, current player for Rizzo's Rangers. According to a Stellar Bay guard named Grim, he is widely known as one of the best hackers in the sport. It was believed that he was capable of sucking up every ball that comes his way, earning him nicknames like the Holmeister, the Hack Attack, and most popularly, Black Hole Bertie. Even one of his memorabilia is considered an artifact, as a signed poster of him was very valuable due to him not signing anything with his hands, relying on a stamp instead. Today, tossball remains as the most popular sport in the colony that many of it still talk about many of its matches. Even in the future, a sport as great and brutal as this can entertain anyone from all walks of life. And although tossball can entertain many, some people strived to find their faith in the galaxy, which led to the creation of 2 unique religions that were being followed. In the 24th century, 2 religions rose up in the future, showing the testament of humanity's need for religion. The religions are Scientism and Philosophism. Scientism is the religion that was spread under the order of scientific inquiry. Although it's unknown when it originated, it became one of the 2 main religions within the Halcyon system. Followed by Scienticians, Scientism believes that everyone has a destined place and role within the galaxy, and that anyone who strays from the destined path would be tantamount to heresy. According to its doctrine, The Grand Architect is said to have created the Grand Plan, a perfect system that began with the dawn of time, where he would eventually step away from it. They also believe that the weak will die and the strong will thrive, learning it in a Darwinian manner. Those who follow scientism were tasked to decipher the Grand Plan and all of its inner workings as their main goal, and when one succeeded in their part, they would be enlightened, believing that they can see the past, future, and every human's destined role in the universe. Fervent followers who accomplished the task would be akin to the Grand Architect himself. And while learning about the Grand Plan is important, every follower must also follow the 6 pillars of scientism that dictate their way of life, where it inspired the creation of their player beads. Survival of the fittest dictates that only the strong survive. Determinism enforces that we are all molecular machines. Empiricism is the belief that scientific experimentation is the way to understand the universe. Stoicism relays that reason is the seat of morality. Teleological order fulfills the notion that all living things have a reason to exist. And finally, patronage of science shows that achievement through science is humanity's true purpose. But while scientism dictates that the cosmos is a fixed plan, it is the opposite of philosophism. Known as the counterpart of scientism, philosophism believes that the universe is a natural phenomenon with no reason why it was created in the first place. Those who practiced them were called philosophists, as they adhere to 2 of their most important concepts, the awakening and the eternal truth. The awakening is a vital point in time when a philosophist witnesses the eternal truth. At any point in time will a philosophist accept it when they would encounter it in their certain life experiences, like the death of an important person they cherish. Finally, the eternal truth is an ability where one can become part of the cosmos' consciousness. Those who enter the eternal truth partake in a great journey to understand the cosmos, turning it into the belief that any being is considered divine. And while the religion is not a violent one, it managed to earn the ire of the corporations, painting it in a bad light, due to their following of scientism. Even so, these 2 religions remained a part of Halcyon's culture, showing how faith remained alive even after humanity had explored the stars. And as faith played its part in shaping the Halcyon system, it is technology that remains to bring humanity to its full potential, allowing them to colonize the Halcyon system. Much like one of the 2 ships that brought the first colonists to their new home. Known as the only ship to make it across the Halcyon system, the Groundbreaker now operates as an orbital space station. It began when the Groundbreaker reached Halcyon, and its chief engineer, Syrric Tennyson, discovered that many corners were cut in building the ship. She spent half of her career fixing those problems, and before her passing, would pass down her knowledge to her descendants. Later on, Syrric's granddaughter, Junlei Tennyson, is the current leader of the Groundbreaker as she strives to protect the Groundbreaker's independence against the board, and yet they would begrudgingly cooperate. While the board has the opportunity to take the Groundbreaker, many corporations recognize its advantages, as it gives them many opportunities to trade with their customers because the Groundbreaker controls many of Halcyon's current trade routes. It's also noted that the board was willing to cooperate with them in exchange for impounding ships flagged by the board. Even so, the Groundbreaker crew was more than willing to find ways to delay the board from taking over their home, such as pitting corporations against each other. Even then, the board still maintained their presence in the space station as they have an embassy run by the bureaucrat named Udom Bedford. Even so, the Groundbreaker is home to many occupants who were housed in areas like the Promenade, Groundbreaker Engineering, and Back Bays. The Promenade houses all of the establishments inside the station. To the south, one can rest after traveling through space by visiting the Rest and Go. And if you want to have a nice cold beer, look up at the Lost Hope. In the northern end, if you want to stock up on some weapons, Ike's Armory is up your alley. But if food is your concern, Auntie's Kitchen and Spratwurst stall are there to fill your belly with their delicious food. Groundbreaker engineering is where all the station's brightest engineers are present, as they stand ready to prepare the groundbreaker when needed. Finally, the back bays are the lower decks of the station, as it is the home of the space station's orphans and outlaws. The bays were run by an outlaw crew under its self-proclaimed king, Gunnar MacRed. Today, the groundbreaker remains independent against the board, as their determination to never be under the yoke of the board endures. Much like the next planet that was able to endure anything, even without the board support. Once part of the board's planetary system, Monarch, or formerly known as Terra 1, was supposed to be the culmination of the board's colonization in the Halcyon system. Their goal was to terraform the moon in order to eradicate the local flora and fauna. Once accomplished, the colonists will be able to introduce plants and animals that originated on Earth. Unfortunately, it caused a mutation that affected the flora and fauna on the planet. Because of it, the board enacted a hazard clause on the planet, where almost all of the companies left, except Monarch Stellar Industries. As the sole remaining company on the planet, MSI renamed Terra 1 as Monarch, only for the board to embargo them. Due to this, the MSI struggled to survive without the support of the board. Even so, their townsfolk are a hardy people, for they are the people of Stellar Bay. As MSI's only settlement, Stellar Bay is known throughout the colony as its main supplier of saltuna. Once caught, their saltuna were sent to the saltuna warehouse, and although they're embargoed, the townsfolk find time to relax at the yacht club or at their humble homes at Stellar Bay Apartments. But while MSI remains the only corporation in Monarch, two more factions would rise up in finding their own fortune. Within a small side of a mountain lies the little town of Fallbrook, owned and run by Sublight. Led by Catherine Mallon, this small town is an oasis for many smugglers and outlaws to hide from the police. It also serves as a hidden transportation hub for various elites from Byzantium who wish to travel undetected from the board. Then, deep within the wilderness of Monarch is Amber Heights, home of the infamous Iconoclasts. Before it was owned by them, it was once part of MSI as the homes of its executives and their families. Unfortunately, they would perish at the hands of pirates, and the event would be known as the Amber Heights Massacre. After their deaths, former MSI employee Graham Bryant and former Rizzo's employee Zora Blackwood would create the Iconoclasts with their goal to overthrow the board. But they also have another goal of spreading their religion of philosophism, as Graham believed it was the group's ultimate goal. And while these three factions plot their futures, they have withstood Monarch's dangerous wilds. The board may have failed to turn the planet into what they desired, but it is the people who adapted to their surroundings and called the planet home. But as the people of Monarch survived through grit, the next planet has divided the population of their societal class, basing their chances of how well their lives were. Known as the only habitable planet for humans, Terra 2 is home to the board, along with several smaller regions owned by their members. As the board owned the planet, it didn't take long for the rest of the population to become workers or company workers. Currently, only 3 regions are known throughout Terra 2: Byzantium, the Emerald Vale, and the Roseway Gardens. Firstly, Byzantium is known as the planet's capital and the main headquarters of the board. It is a magnificent city that is advertised as the Gilded City of the well-to-do. Byzantium is home to many colonists, where they have the luxury to live wherever they desired. The city is built in a radial layout, as its architecture is based on the Art Nouveau style. The city is divided into 4 districts: Acropolis District, Docking Bays, Estate District, and Prosperity Plaza. The Acropolis District houses the richest people in Byzantium, as it is also the location of the board's headquarters, located on a tall skyscraper. The docking bays are bays where numerous vessels on a large trench encircles Byzantium's midsection. Then the Estates District is home to many respectable citizens, including the Halcyon Minister for Earth. Aloysius Clark. Lastly, the Prosperity Plaza holds many fine establishments like Bijou's Revue, Rococo's Decca, and Billingsley's House of Inebriation. And in the middle of it is a giant orrery that details the halcyon system. But while the citizens of Byzantium live in luxury, it is unfortunate for the rest of the planet as they live in regions owned by their companies, such as the Emerald Vale or the Roseway Gardens. The Emerald Vale is a region owned by Spacer's Choice, where most of its towns were abandoned. The only town that is still thriving is Edgewater. Supervised under Reed Thompson, Edgewater's purpose is to manufacture salt tuna through their local cannery. Unfortunately, their town is experiencing a crisis due to a plague that afflicted the area and a supply shortage of food and medicine. Because of this, many of its townfolk would desert Edgewater and made their way to the Botanical Labs, an abandoned factory that was once owned by Spacer's Choice and is now owned by Adelaide McDevitt. As their leader, McDevitt showed great care to her fellow deserters by growing natural food from the soil. Unfortunately, she would rely on human remains as her fertilizer in order for her crops to grow. Even then, she is more than willing to do whatever is necessary for her group to survive. Meanwhile, the Roseway Gardens is a region once owned by Auntie Cleo's, as their former workers once worked at the antibiotics lab, along with the town of Roseway. At the time, the lab was conducting research on how much raptidine acid a human can consume, using its own workers as lab rats. As of today, the lab is abandoned as raptidines and violent automotives are left behind. But on the other hand, Roseway still survives, even though the company has threatened them of the abandonment. Through it, Terra 2 has shown its distinction in how its citizens were divided. From the shining beacon that is Byzantium to the simple and dangerous towns that were away from its protection. And while planets remained under the board, there are some places that were abandoned by their respective companies to hide a secret, such as one of the abandoned asteroids previously owned by Spacer's Choice. Once owned by Spacer's Choice, the Gorgon asteroid is an abandoned facility that was shut down for unknown reasons. But even though Spacer's Choice sealed the Gorgon, it didn't stop the local wildlife from evolving. Soon, marauders and treasure hunters would visit the asteroid in search of treasure and valuable items. Even drug traffickers used the asteroid for their smuggling operations. Most of the events that occurred inside Gorgon is located in the Gorgon Canyon, a large region within the asteroid. In Gorgon's Canyon, most of the places remained abandoned by Spacer's Choice, except for one. Known as the Sprat Shack, this small bar was once a shipping and receiving warehouse until Spacer's Choice abandoned it, leaving Sublight to take it as their own. Its current owner goes by the name of Lex, who runs the bar and a shop called Drinks, Victuals, Lost and Found. With it, the Sprat Shack caters to many people, be it from Sublight contractors and freelancers to smugglers and drifters. Meanwhile, the facilities once owned by Spacer's Choice remains abandoned, like the Compound Harvesting Enrichment and Molecularization Lab, or Chem Lab, the Human Inquiry and Auditing Region, the Office of Creative Incubation, and the Synthesis and Manufacturing Center. But within these places lie a terrible secret as to why Spacer's Choice abandoned the place. Before its abandonment, it was once a research facility when they were creating a new product called Adrenatime. This drug was advertised as a way for workers to stay awake and perform their duties better. It originated when executives discovered that their miners were able to work exceedingly well due to the xenocytes that inhabit the mines. Because of this, Spacer's Choice attempted to create the product, only to obtain it due to the copious amount of money needed for research. And it grew even worse, as the users who took the drug gained psychosis and paranoia, as the product's former test subjects run rampant across Gorgon. Nevertheless, some of them managed to enter circulation as it was sold in the Groundbreaker through Gladys Kalkelly and Idris Mfuru. Thus, the asteroid of Gorgon remains a deadly place to visit as many wished to grow rich. But in the end, the only thing they find is the result of greed and malice. While Spacer's Choice chose to abandon their next project, the next planet still remains as they continue manufacturing their flagship products for their customers. As one of the planets owned by Rizos, Eridanos is a gas giant in Halcyon where the company exploited its gases for energy. Upon its discovery, Rizzo's representative, Ludovico, hired Sublight Underground to construct the Eridanos Atmospheric Complex, a group of floating land masses that sit atop the planet's atmosphere. Once completed, the islands were able to generate energy using Eridanos' gases that consists of helium and hydrogen, along with other noble gases. And although Rizzo's believed to completely own the complex, they were swindled. Before it was completed, Sublight's representative, Cedric Kincannon, added a clause in the contract that they would own two properties within the complex: the Pariah Spaceport and the Grand Colonial Hotel. Because of this, it started a Cold War between the two companies as they attempted to sabotage each other. Even so, while both companies staked their claims in the complex, it was Rizzo's who maintained the majority of Eridanos, with places like the Purpleberry Orchards, the Nut Hut, and their distilleries. But if you're not keen in products, others can visit the Prophet of Profitability, as she runs therapy sessions to get rid of your nefarious humors to be a better worker. And yet, a deadly incident occurred within the planet as the victim is known far and wide by the Halcyon system. Halcyon Helen. Halcyon Helen is known far and wide as one of the best fictional characters the colony has witnessed. Played by twin sisters Ruth and Belinda Bellamy, Halcyon Helen has starred in many famous serials like Terror on Monarch. Unfortunately, no one knew that Halcyon Helen was played by two actors, as some posters credit Ruth as the main actor, making it one of the Aetherwave industry's biggest secrets. But tragedy struck when the duo arrived in Eridanos. Upon their arrival, both sisters were sent to the planet as a means to promote one of Rizzo's latest drinks, Spectrum Brown. One of the two decided to investigate Rizzo's regarding their drink when Halcyon Helen was found dead. It sent shockwaves throughout the complex as some of them asked one question: who killed Halcyon Helen? Nevertheless, while the planet is plagued with a silent battle between Rizos and Sublight, Eridanos remains shrouded with mystery, especially Halcyon Helen's murder. Even so, her name is next to another figure, who is known as a dangerous criminal branded by the board. But in truth, he is a man willing to risk it all to save the Hope. Wells was a former scientist turned fugitive, as he was on the run from the board for 35 years. The reason why he became one is because of the Hope. When the Hope finally resurfaced after 25 years, the board attempted to revive the colonists inside. Unfortunately, they were in stasis for so long that should they attempt it, it would lead to their deaths. Because of this, the board decided to keep the Hope a secret, believing that should they make it public, the colonists would beg the board to save them at all costs. Instead, it was kept a secret by them, with the excuse that the Hope is lost for good. But during that time, Wells was once part of the board, currently employed as their scientist. When he discovered the Hope, he was angry that the board decided not to help the Hope's colonists, believing that he had the skill set to save the Hope's colonists. He would then send his request to the board, that with enough time, he can save the Hope's colonists without the risk of death. Unfortunately, his request was rejected, forcing him to do his research in secret. To do it, he would secretly steal some of the colonists from the Hope and conduct experiments on them. But then, the board would learn about his secret experiments, and Wells was forced to run away. On that day, the board branded him a criminal, with his crimes including sedition, forgery, conspiracy to commit conspiracy, unlicensed medical practice, and destruction of board property. For 35 years, he was hunted down but managed to survive as he lived in personal laboratories within the rings of Terra 2. His laboratory was once on Auntie Cleo's storage facility, where he disguised it as a small asteroid. He would conduct his experiments regarding the Hope's colonists through the use of cyst pigs. He would then bond with one of them and name him Bubbles. At the time, Wells bonded with Bubbles, and that allegedly created even more delicious tumors. Even so, Wells worked hard on creating a formula to bring them back, and after much trial and error, he perfected it. Wells managed to make a single dose for one of the colonists as he decided to use the opportunity to save one life. He then infiltrated the Hope, avoiding the guards that tried to stop him, but it was too late. Wells woke up one of the colonists, who would later on change the fate of Halcyon forever. Dubbed as the Stranger, he or she is known as the unplanned variable that affected the entire Halcyon system in its head. Before they were known as such, the Stranger was once a citizen of Earth who partook in the colonist entrance exam. They would eventually pass it and was part of the many colonists who would form the Halcyon colony. And as they enter the Hope, the Stranger will be in stasis after being told that 10 years will be like minutes to them once they arrived at their new home with a guarantee of being a full employee. Unfortunately, the Hope's skip drive malfunctioned, causing the Stranger and the rest of the colonists to arrive at their destination 15 years late. And when the board discovered the Hope, they hid it from the public to avoid earning a public outcry. The Stranger and the colonists would have stayed in stasis forever until Phineas Wells arrived. With this new formula, he saved the Stranger and whisked them away into his laboratory. He would then tell them about his mission to save the Hope's colonists. Wells sent them to Terra 2 to meet a smuggler named Alex Hawthorne through a drop pod. At the time, Hawthorne was holding a beacon to signal the drop pod's landing site. Unfortunately, he didn't put the beacon down and was subsequently crushed by the Stranger's drop pod. Soon after, the Stranger would discover Terra 2, where they would learn a new ability called the Tactical Time Dilation. Known as Skip Flu, this unique ability was caused by a side effect of hibernation sickness. When activated, the Stranger can learn about the target's information and attack certain parts of them that can cripple or outright kill them. The Stranger would use these powers to kill marauders and wildlife upon its first usage, as they would make their way to Hawthorne's former ship, the Unreliable. The Unreliable is Hawthorne's former ship, which was once called the Reliable. It is only when Hawthorne would rename it by scrubbing the letters UN atop the ship's name flag. The ship also comes with an AI named Ada, whom Hawthorne would reprogram to have an interesting personality so that he can enjoy his time on the ship. But with him dead, the Stranger would meet Ada as she proposed to the Stranger in becoming the new captain. Unfortunately, the ship is unable to blast off as its main power regulator is broken. With it, she told the Stranger to visit the town of Edgewater to procure the device after creating a new identity cartridge for them. On that day, the Stranger's adventures began with the sole duty of saving the Hope, and as they marked their first step in their journey, they would soon form a ragtag crew from all walks of life, starting with their engineer, Parvati Holcomb. Born to a mechanic and a bureaucrat, Parvati Holcomb is the Saltuna Cannery's resident engineer in fixing their machinery. Before her birth, Parvati's father, Robert Holcomb, was once a mechanic in the cannery where he would meet a woman named Idumati. She was sent to Edgewater to be in charge of its computers. They would conceive a child and were named Parvati. After Idumati was reassigned to Terra 1 by Spacer's choice. Growing up, Parvati never resented her mother as she considered it practical on her end. She would then learn about machines thanks to her father and grew to love them. Later on, she would become the cannery's next engineer after her father died due to overworking, as his heart gave out. With her new position, she worked in maintaining the cannery but was met with trouble from her boss, from late work schedules to missing deadlines. It would seem that she would live her life in Edgewater until she meets the stranger. When the stranger arrived at the cannery, they would meet its owner, Reed Thompson, for whom the stranger was looking for a new regulator. Thompson explained that the town is experiencing a power shortage, along with a lack of workers due to Adelaide McDevitt. He then told them that they could find a new regulator by redirecting power from a local geothermal plant and taking the regulator from the botanical gardens. With no choice, the stranger accepts Thompson's offer, where Parvati requested to help them as her father told her about the plant's inner workings. With it, Thompson approved Parvati's request as she joined the stranger in redirecting the power plant. And regardless of the outcome, she would follow the stranger to the Unreliable, where she asked them if she could join the crew. Should they accept Parvati's invitation, she would be ecstatic as she thanked them. As part of the crew, Parvati is capable of helping the stranger's engineering skills when she is accompanying the stranger. She's also capable of helping them with their persuasion and lockpicking. Parvati also helps the stranger's time dilation, which would last longer whenever she uses her special ability. She can also assist them in finding modifications for the stranger to improve their weapons and armor. Her ability, Overload, can stun multiple enemies at once as Parvati slams her impact hammer, creating a powerful shockwave. With her engineering know-how, Parvati's dream of traveling through the stars with her captain came true, as her adventure is only beginning. But before she and the stranger left Edgewater, she would convince the stranger to visit a vicarage, as she was conflicted on their mission. Inside, they would meet Edgewater's remaining symbols of hope, Vicar Maximilian de Soto. As Edgewater's official vicar, Maximilian de Soto of Vicar Max is a devout man of scientism, where he is known by the townspeople as a pious and merciful man of the cloth. But behind his gentle smile is a disdainful heart that started in his childhood. Born to a family of workers, Max grew up with disdain as his parents were devout worshippers of scientism. He was envious that his parents were happy through their religion, so he decided to learn about the OSI of how they made them happy. Against his parents' wishes, he joined the OSI and became a vicar. But during his stay, he was frustrated due to the answers given to him by his peers. With no choice, he decided to read books about philosophy, not knowing that it was a taboo by their order. He would be caught for the crime and was sent to the prison planet of Tartarus. While serving his sentence, he would join a prison tossball team called the Fifth Backs, using it as an outlet for his rage. At one point, he would savagely beat up an inmate named Lem, as Max considered him a degenerate at the time. He then meets with his fellow inmate named Reginald Chaney, who learned about his interests in philosophical books. He told Max that he knows one of them and told him about a journal of a man named M. Bakonu. According to him, the journal is located in Edgewater, which allowed the vicar to intentionally station himself in the town with the hopes of obtaining the book. It was also through that decision that he would meet the stranger alongside Parvati. When the stranger arrived at his vicarage, he would welcome them as the stranger asked for advice regarding their dilemma. Should they divert the power towards the gardens and forsake the town's safety, or divert the power towards Edgewater and risk the death of the deserters? With it, Max suggested that it's better to divert power towards Edgewater and convince the deserters to come back home. And before leaving, Max warned the stranger of the coming dangers when visiting the geothermal plant. He would also ask the stranger to retrieve Bakonu's journal in exchange for money. Later on, the stranger would pursue Max's request as they would find the book inside a hideout filled with mines. Once the mines were cleared, the stranger would retrieve the book by lockpicking the hideout safe. The stranger would return to Vicar Max with the journal, much to his delight. But as he was browsing through the journal, he became furious as the book is written in French. He would then reveal his colors to the stranger that the only reason he stayed in Edgewater was to put up with the townspeople's complaints to acquire it, as well as learn more about the architect's plan. Because of this, he asks the stranger to help him get off the planet, in which they obliged. Upon joining the crew, Vicar Max can help the stranger through science and hacking due to his training within the Order. He's also proficient in helping the player use science weapons and increase their proficiency during combat. His special ability is Trick Shot, where he uses a sawed-off shotgun to blast his foes to pieces in close range. Even though he is a man of the cloth, Vicar Max shows that his desire to learn about the plan is matched with his anger against his foes. But for the next companion, she would be the opposite of the Vicar, as the stranger would meet her while they're attempting to acquire a nav key in traveling to Monarch. After finishing up at Edgewater, Wells would contact the stranger, where they must acquire a nav key towards Stellar Bay at Monarch. They told them to meet with a black marketeer named Gladys Kalkelly to acquire it in Groundbreaker. And as the stranger arrived at the space station, they would later meet another future companion, should they visit the medical bay. Her name is Ellie Fenhill. Born to a rich family in Byzantium, Marilyn Fenhill was discontent with her boring decadent life as she studied to be a surgeon. She would then flee Byzantium and decide to become a mercenary and an adventurer in the Halcyon system. By 2355, she would sport a pirate's haircut and a customized ammo belt, transforming her into a pirate. This turned the former daughter of socialites into an apathetic and easygoing mercenary. She would describe herself as a sawbones, preferring to keep things professional, which didn't allow her to share her emotions with others, and during her stint as a pirate, led her to the Groundbreaker and met her future captain. At the time, Ellie is at the medical bay, where she is concerned about her friend, Jessie. When the stranger asked what was happening, Ellie asked the stranger for help regarding her friend, leaving the stranger to sneak inside. Upon finding Jessie, they discovered that she's being hunted down by Udom Bedford, who sent agents after her due to her debts. This led the stranger to meet Udon at the Halcyon Embassy, where the stranger was able to clear Jessie's debts, be it paying the full amount or indenturing her to the board. Even so, Jessie would reward the stranger, and Ellie would be grateful that the stranger also cleared her debts as well. Because of this, she declared herself as part of the stranger's crew as a way to clear her debt with them. With her experience as a mercenary, Ellie is known for helping the player lie their way out of trouble. And with her medical studies, she can assist players by increasing their medical and engineering skills. She can also boost the stranger's medical inhaler, which increases its healing properties and can revive the player when defeated. She's also a proficient quick shooter, using her quick draw ability to fire precise laser shots at her target. After years of going through different contracts and different friends, Ellie joined the crew in searching for new thrills and adventures. Maybe with the stranger, she might have one hell of a ride with them. But she won't be the only companion the stranger would have, as another one would appear who, much like Parvati, would love to have an adventure due to the unreliable. He is Felix Millstone. Born in the back bays of the Groundbreaker, Felix Millstone grew up without a family. While it may seem lonely, he didn't mind it at all, as he would constantly watch serials, using them as a way to learn about the colony. He is also friends with the outlaw King MacRed and his gang due to his growing up in the back base. He'd also love Tossball, as he enjoyed learning about the players and watching their games. But deep down, his dream is to tear down the system made by the board. Once he was of age, Felix became a reckless boy who would constantly get in trouble due to his attitude. He would learn to fight when, at some point, he joined a group of outlaws under Clyde Harlow. Harlow would teach Felix how to fight and became his mentor, instilling him with a philosophy of how to think, how to question, and how to disobey. This philosophy strengthened Felix's outlook that he wanted to be part of Harlow's revolution to change Halcyon forever. But then, Harlow would disappear, leaving Felix behind at Groundbreaker. Eventually, Felix would get a job as a box carrier, causing trouble wherever he went, going so far as to steal some parts. But it was during this shift that he would take the opportunity to join the Stranger's crew. When the Stranger arrived at Groundbreaker, Felix was the one who welcomed him to the orbital station, as he and the Stranger chatted for a while until the Stranger made their way to the inner stations of the Groundbreaker. But as the Stranger and his party were about to re-embark, they would come across Felix, who admitted to admiring the Unreliable. He begged the Stranger to join the crew, telling him of his skills, and if the Stranger accepts his offer, Felix would be ecstatic, as his life is about to get exciting, just like the serials he watched as a kid. Although his former job used to be carrying boxes, Felix's training with Harlow paid off, as he can assist the Stranger in persuasion, sneaking, and lockpicking. He's also fond of taking down cowering enemies and helps the Stranger take on any corporate enemy. His specialty is a simple dropkick capable of stunning foes after years of watching tossball games. With his rebellious attitude and confidence, Felix is more than ready to stick it to the man, believing that the revolution he seeks will arrive sooner than later. But while his brash attitude can butt heads with anyone, the next companion is found in Stellar Bay, visiting the local bar and offering his services to anyone. Once the Stranger acquired the nav key to Monarch, Wells would contact the Stranger to find an information broker named Hiram Blythe. He would also warn them of the dangers of the planet, asking them to find a guide for their travels. The name of their guide is Nyoka. Nyoka Ramniram Wentworth III was born and raised in Monarch, with her parents being anti-corporate. This drove a wedge between their relationship, as Nyoka chose to stay in Monarch, while her parents left during the Hazard Clause evacuation. She would later on become a hunter for hire after meeting fellow hunter Jackson Hayes. They would work together for different clients until they found a cave system that was unaffected by Monarch's ecosystem. They would contact Sublight to renovate the cave, as two of its members, Opal Obliette and Andre Wadsworth, chose to stay after renovations were completed. Then, during a stint in Monarch's wilderness, she'd encounter sisters Rebecca and Clara Hodges. The sisters would join the group, and together they would form Charon, mercenaries for hire for the survivors of Monarch. Things were going well for them until Rebecca and Andre left them for a UDL contract. They promised to accomplish it so that they could buy a better base for their friends. But after that day, they never returned. Then a Mantiqueen attacked their former base, causing the deaths of Opal, Clara, and Hayes, who died in Nyoka's arms. Nyoka was the only survivor of the attack, and buried her former friends in a marked grave within the Monarch wilderness. She would later on work for Blythe as his intermediary for his customers. As of today, she has become a local customer in Stellar Bay's Yacht Club, where she would constantly be drinking while offering her service as a guide. But it all changed when Nyoka encountered the Stranger. When the Stranger finds Nyoka, they would ask for her help in making their way to Blythe, only for her to tell them that she needs to sober up. To make the process quick, the Stranger must get her caffeinoid from the dispensary. The Stranger would meet the owner of the dispensary, Abigail Edwards, who told the Stranger that Nyoka had exceeded her limit in her monthly allotment. The Stranger can either scare Abigail from getting caffeinoid, increase the allotment by hacking MSI's servers, or make her a member, or steal it from the supply room, be it from finding a key or picking its lock. Once Nyoka gets her pills, she's ready to assist the Stranger on his mission, officially joining the crew. Upon joining the crew, Nyoka can help the stranger with their lie skills, alongside their sneak and medical skills. And as a seasoned hunter, she can teach the stranger to muffle the sounds of their footsteps and increase the damage the stranger does against alien creatures. Her special ability, Barrage, lets her use a modified LMG that fires multiple incendiary rounds at her target, causing nearby enemies to burn. Even when the going gets tough, Nyoka is here to protect her clients so long as they stick close to her. With a life as tragic as hers, she's done relying on others for help, preferring to finish the job by herself. And while she made her place within the Unreliable, the final companion is in fact within the ship, as it used to be owned by Hawthorne himself. Before Hawthorne worked for Wells, he was working on a special project for himself, believing it would be very helpful in his future jobs. Its name is Sam. Once a sanitation and maintenance automechanical, Hawthorne found it in a junk heap at the Emerald Vale during a job. Once he brought it back to the ship, he decided to overhaul it into a powerful weapon at his disposal. He would first remove the SUDS sweeper, planning to replace it with an acid steeper. Unfortunately, the delivery didn't arrive, and Hawthorne lost all hope of completing his project, until he was able to find information about another acid steeper after paying Blythe for information. According to him, it is located at an old storage facility in Roseway. Hawthorne planned to collect it after finishing his job with the stranger, but he accidentally died. Then, when the stranger found Sam near his crew's bunks, they would ask Ada where it came from, prompting the AI to explain Hawthorne's project. She would then direct the stranger into the storage facility, which is unfortunately locked. They can either pick the lock or find the door's passwords to retrieve the steeper. With it, the stranger went to work on reactivating it, as Sam would ask if you'd like to register. And after saying yes, Sam would roam around the ship and begin his patrol. After his activation, Sam is capable of assisting the stranger through their intimidate, hacking, and science skills. As a former cleaning robot, Sam can help the stranger reduce the duration of their negative effects alongside its capabilities in dismantling rogue automechanicals with ease. It can also protect the stranger's reputation, as it can lessen the negative impact the stranger has when it kills a faction's soldiers. But it pales in comparison with its deadly ability known as Decontaminate. Sam briefly jumps and slams itself near the target, spreading caustic acid and cleaning out very tough stains. Today, Sam is here to bring out cleanliness in whatever field of battle he's in, and no matter the stain, Sam's ready to clean them out. And that's it for today's video. If you liked this video and want to dive more into other games, check out the rest of our videos, like this Fallout New Vegas one that's on your screen right now.